He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. You know, I've said this before. I live on Biloxi's Back Bay near Keesler Air Force Base, and literally as we speak, I can hear the hum of the Hurricane Hunter engines as they prepare for their flights, their recon flights out into tropical depression number 8 out in the Gulf, which is just south of the mouth of the Mississippi River. It's headed west. It's not headed toward us, but we're going to get a lot of rain from it. We'll get some higher tides. But the hum, that familiar hum, tells you something active is happening. Now, they do a lot of training throughout the year, and as the hurricane season approaches, you hear them more. But this time of year, it's like this constant hum of those engines. Something reassuring about that, but there's also there's something not so reassuring about that. But here's where we are today, though. What better time than today here on Coast View to have the top hurricane chaser in the world to join us, Josh Morganman. He's actually known around the world as iCyclone or the Hurricane Man, and he has really earned it. You're about to see why. Good morning, Josh. How are you, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great, man. The hum of those engines, you know, I live close enough to Keesler Air Force Base that we can see them, and they'll fly right over our house. And there's actually a mission out into Tropical Depression number 8 as we speak. Now, I should tell people that we're actually filming this on Thursday, July the 23rd, of course, 2020. It's going to play on the 24th. There's a radiothon that's happening today on SuperTalk, so that's why we're taping it today. But by the time people see this, Tropical Depression number 8 may be named Hannah. At least based on what the current prognostications are. And if it's named Hannah, it will be the number of named storms will be outpacing 2005, the year of Hurricane Katrina. So this is going to be a hyper active season. That's what most of the experts are saying, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, every indicator says that. I mean, I should say there's the seasonal prediction science is not perfect, and I've seen predictions for big seasons and they kind of aren't so busy, or the opposite happen. But with this season, it looks like all the indicators is that we're really gonna have like a busy time. And it's funny, you know, July was quiet, and then just in the last 2 days, it was, you know, just very on schedule with climatology. Everything just sort of clicked, and now all these systems are popping up.
Yeah, I mean, the wave train off of Africa has started. So we've got Gonzalo out there now. This is going to probably undergo some challenges in its future. We don't know yet whether it's going to survive that or not. But if it does survive that, that's something that could challenge us.
Exactly. My eye is on Gonzalo. Like, I keep looking at that. It, just like you said, if it survives the east area for tropical cyclones, if it gets through that and it gets into the Northwest Caribbean, kind of out of heading, that could bring it into the Gulf. That could be our first big thing to watch for like folks in the Gulf.
Yeah, when you look at all the things that need to happen, the Gulf is warm now. If you look at the environment around Tropical Depression number 8, it's you know, if it had a lot more time, it could get scary, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm looking at it closely right now. You know, overnight I was watching it. It looked pretty sorry, but then, you know, just in those very early morning hours, and this is often when this happens, it's called the diurnal max. But in the very early morning hours, you saw the convection or the thunderstorms starting to like kind of really blow up around the center of it. And it's, you know, once you have the thunderstorm activity right over the center, that's when anything can happen. So the other thing I'm noticing about this system is it's kind of small, and small systems can have very rapid intensity fluctuations, meaning they can get strong really fast or weak really fast. So I haven't ruled out that Hannah could really, or potential Hannah could really do something before it reaches Texas.
It's going to be an interesting season. I've said before that, you know, a nail biter, a strap on your seatbelt. Let's hope none of those things happen, because, you know, one of the things we've talked to some of the experts about is in a hurricane sort of aftermath to deal with the recovery effort in this COVID environment, that's going to be really tough. I really, and the other thing is, after Katrina, the eyes of the world were on us, but pandemic is sort of this hurricane that has hit the world, and everybody's got their own challenges as we speak. So it's going to be a very interesting time for any community that has to overcome a hurricane type disaster. Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about it all the time. I mean, let's hope, people think, oh, because I chase hurricanes, I must I hope for them and I want them to hit. And it's actually not so. I don't hope for them. What I hope is that if they're going to hit, then I'm going to be there to, document them and collect data. But, like everyone else, I'm just hoping we get off easy this year. But the big thing that's a concern, obviously, is evacuations. You think of evacuation centers, you think of a lot of people crammed into, indoor rooms. It's a perfect, recipe for like super spreader events with COVID. And then the concern there is, okay, if people are scared of that, are they going to stay home and not evacuate and stay in dangerous situations? We have enough trouble as it is getting people to evacuate, before hurricane events. And this is another thing that's going to keep people from maybe evacuating. So it's a big concern. How is it going to affect human behavior? How is it going to affect how people respond to a potential, an emergency? I don't think folks on the Mississippi coast are going to need to be persuaded to evacuate if need be, because, you guys have some major, obviously, cataclysmic events in recent history that tends to, those fresh memories tend to be very motivating for people. But in other parts of the coast, let's say, for example, Tampa, Florida, Tampa hasn't had a major hurricane since 1921. 1921. Right. I mean, like 99 years, they have not had a major hurricane. Memories there are obviously almost no one there remembers what a major hurricane is like. And I always wonder what's going to happen when a major approaches there, and with COVID.
Yeah, man. I mean, all the modeling I've seen on Tampa is a catastrophic scenario potentially. Could be really bad. Hey, coming back to a point you made a minute ago, Kyle mentioned something on the show the other day, which I think is a good thing to remind people, that he's concerned that if we have close calls, like really close calls, but no, it didn't hit here. It reminds me of Dennis. The year that Katrina hit, we did an evacuation of New Orleans. Dennis goes on into the Florida Panhandle. And then when Katrina came not long after that, and they did another mandatory evacuation, I think too many people stayed. So what ends up happening, people get worn out by that. And then you add what you just said, the COVID situation to it. It could be really scary. And I think the most important thing is that people need to look at every storm and listen to the emergency operations people and look at each individual storm individually and see what the advice is, because as you know, they've gotten really good at helping us understand if we need to get the hell out of Dodge, haven't they?
Oh, like amazingly. I mean, the forecasting science has improved dramatically. I mean, even over the last 20 years. Well, there's two things when you're forecasting a hurricane. There's forecasting the track where it's going, and then there's forecasting the intensity. Now, in terms of track, they've gotten better and better. I mean, it's more and more accurate. Intensity, not so much. That's still kind of a mystery. Why a hurricane gets really strong or why it falls apart, they don't know. But the other thing they've done a really good job with is mapping the coast and what's going to be underwater. There's a lot of science improvements with that, and the Hurricane Center has all these cool maps that show you what areas of the coast are going to be underwater and like by how much. I mean, it's great stuff, and it really helps people prepare. I mean, it's complicated, and they've really done a good job. At one point you said, which I think is really important, and I talk about this a lot, especially when I'm like doing the speaking circuit every year when I'm not chasing, the difference between being in a direct hit in a hurricane and not a direct hit. So hurricane's really big. On a satellite image, it's huge, but the really crazy part is a tiny ring around the center. It's a very small part of the overall storm. So when you have a hurricane moving ashore, a very small section of the coast gets the direct hit. They get inside what's called the eye wall. That's the really scary part. Everyone else just gets a lot of crummy weather. So what happens is a lot of people, they go through the periphery, the outer part, and they think they were in a category 4, but they actually weren't. They were in a category 4 if they were in that little little core, that inner part. And that's the important thing, is that after a hurricane, people need to know whether they were in a direct hit, so that it'll properly influence their actions in the future. Now, most normal people, after they go through the inner core of a category 3 or higher, usually once is enough for them. If they're not a weirdo like me, they're like, okay, I'm not gonna do that again, because that's scary.
Josh, let me tell you why what you said just now is important. I hope people, I want to do this show to help save lives, frankly. But A.J. Holloway, the mayor of Biloxi after Hurricane Katrina, before and after Hurricane Katrina, he passed away not long ago, God bless him. He said after Katrina that Hurricane Camille killed more people in 2005 than she killed in 1969. And the reason was that people survived Camille. They thought they survived Camille. And they said, well, Camille is way worse than Katrina, so I can survive Katrina. That probably hits home with you. As we come, let's just do this. We're gonna go to the break. When we come back out of the break, we'll center on that for just a second. I have something I want to mention about Hurricane Michael. And then we're gonna take your Dorian ride for a little bit, and we'll come back to that. But this is Josh Morganman. You may know him as iCyclone. You may know him as the Hurricane Man. He's the top hurricane chaser in the world, and we'll be back after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90, Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer-songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and,
Wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Let me know if you're en route. Back.
49 Adams, the unconscious, Main Street and West Road, 49 Adams.
A lot of people are just worried about supplies.
Our supplies are getting pretty low, and that gives us great concern.
Aside from the PPE issues, they're really worried about if they are exposed and they have to be away from work for a certain amount of time.
We're going to need some money there. And so that's one way the public can support us as well, is keep sending money into that support fund.
What I really truly hope is that people don't forget that feeling right now of wanting to volunteer and give back to their community.
I hope this doesn't dramatically change the volunteer fire service.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk Mississippi. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Josh Morganman, who is the hurricane man. And I didn't mention this, and we're gonna come back to this in a second, but he rented a house in Bay St. Louis for this hurricane season. We're going to give you the reasons for that coming up here in just a second. But when we went to break, I mentioned to Josh about what Mayor A.J. Holloway from Biloxi said, that Hurricane Camille killed more people in 2005 than it killed in 1969. That hits home with you, doesn't it, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Folks will get a false sense of security if they're in a hurricane, but not in the direct hit zone. So the Category 5, it made landfall to the west, but the inner core missed us, but I was in a Cat 5. No, you weren't. If you weren't in that inner core, you weren't in a Cat 5. And that's the important thing I talk about this. I think one of the most important things that they need to do in terms of educating the public is this is my big crusade, is helping people along the Gulf Coast and the East Coast understand after every hurricane, people should know who was in the direct hit zone, and they should know if they weren't, so that they know that, no, you were not in a Category 4 or 3 or whatever it was. I mean, that is incredibly important because, like I was saying before, most normal people, after a normal person has been through the eye wall, the direct hit from a Category 3 or higher, most normal people are like, wow, I'm not going to do that again. That's really scary. And it is scary. I've been in 49 hurricane and typhoon eye walls. And by the way, for people who don't know, a typhoon is a hurricane. It's the same thing. It's just what they call them in East Asia. I've been in 49. I still find them scary. When you're in something that's like a 3 or a 4 or a 5, to me, it's still nuts. Every time I'm like, wow, this is crazy, man. Even me. And it's just, it kind of really, there's nothing like that experience to kind of make you take it seriously. But until you've been in that, you might not.
Kyle referred to you this week as a special kind of crazy. That's what he said about you. 49, you have almost 100% success rate when it comes to positioning yourself in an eye wall. We're going to come to Dorian in a second, but I just want to mention something about Michael. You mentioned a minute ago. Now, look, track-wise, man, they have really gotten good at track. They've gotten so much better. It's a crusade that I personally went on after Katrina, after nearly getting killed by the storm surge, that the National Hurricane Center had to do a better job at modeling with the storm surge so they could give people. They can't do it based on category. They need to do it based on that specific storm. And they've really improved that, as you pointed out a few minutes ago. But intensity is an area they still have a lot of work to do. And Michael's a great example of that, isn't it?
Like a textbook. When Michael formed, this was while we were shooting Hurricane Man, my show, and I'll talk about it more later, but a crew follows me around as I hunt down hurricanes. And I remember being on a call with the producers, about 5 days before it hit. And I'm looking at it, and I couldn't decide whether we should go for it. I didn't know whether we should mobilize a whole crew to get to the Florida Panhandle for what looked like was going to be a marginal hurricane, maybe not even a hurricane. And, there's a lot of when you're shooting a TV show, there's a lot of money on the line and everything. And I didn't want to waste, the producers' resources on what I thought was going to be a dud. We took a gamble and decided to go. And lo and behold, it becomes the 4th strongest hurricane in American history at landfall. That's just a perfect example of how, they still, there's something really there's something very mysterious about the inner core dynamics of a hurricane and why some go nuclear and some just turned into scrambled eggs.
And Mexico Beach got an opportunity to see what going nuclear looks like.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Mexico Beach, got that right front quad. Mexico Beach got in Michael what past Christiane got in Camille. So Mexico Beach and past Christiane in these respective events, they were not in the eye. They missed the eye, but they got that sort of what we call the right front quad, which is that part of the hurricane just to the right of the eye, of the inner core, where it's just nuts, and where the onshore flow just pushes in a massive surge. So there's a good analogy there. Past Christiane and Camille, Mexico Beach and Michael. Panama City went, was on the other side of the eye, and Panama City, that's a metro area of about 167,000 people, took a direct hit from a Category 5. That's serious. And the impact, man, it really, I've not seen an impact like that in the United States in terms of wind.
Yeah, it was really, really unbelievable. That's a recent history storm. But I'm sure people who a lot of people from here spend a lot of time down in that part of the country. And, we go down there on our little vacations as well. And it was hard to watch. Thank God it didn't hit places, direct hit to places like Destin, for example, and it would have just been an economic loss for Florida. You don't want it to hit anywhere, but if it was going to hit somewhere, it probably hit the place it needed to hit in terms of population. One of the things in following you over the years, I've seen you in the Philippines. Hurricane Patricia. Down in Mexico, you've positioned yourself for all these major storms, and there are some death-defying sort of experiences. I've watched you, and people can go do a search on Josh Morgerman or iCyclone, and you can watch some of these videos. He has an uncanny ability to position himself. What I noticed about you, though, Josh, is that you're not the kind of guy who is screaming. And, some of those hurricane chasers, they're riding around in their car and they're, oh my gosh, I'm in the eye of the storm. And you hear them. And those guys are the guys who are going to get killed, by the way, because they're careless. And while you're putting yourself in the eye of the storm, I would not say that you're careless. How do you talk about your position?
It's tough. Listen, chasing any hurricane, it's like an inherently stupid activity. So I'm like never gonna, every chaser has his own sort of line of how far he'll take it. And I go pretty far. I mean, I chase very aggressively. I'm obsessed with hurricanes. I mean, really, it's just a lifelong, literally like an obsession with this topic. But two, I'm also I'm competitive, and I treat it like, I don't want to say like a sport, but I kind of do, I'm like, it's important to me that every chase is a success, that I get in the inner core, that I don't miss, that I don't bust. It's like, there's some competitive side to me. I don't know. I think something from like my dad pushing me so hard when I was young in sports, but it's just how I am about hurricane chasing. So I really go for it. And because of that, I've occasionally done stupid things. So when I see other chasers do stupid things, I try not to judge, but the important thing for me is that once I'm in it and I'm documenting it and I'm filming it, a hurricane to me it's so dramatic. I mean, and your listeners know this, like everyone who's listening to this has been in a hurricane, and you all know what I'm talking about, like I'm from LA or that's where I've lived the last 30 years. We don't really get weather there. It's just it's really weather-wise, it's boring. And people there don't know, no one in LA knows what a hurricane is like, the magic of it, the terror. And it really is. It's almost like there is something magical about it. I mean, maybe it's bad magic, but to me, it strikes me, and I really want to capture that. And so when I'm filming, I'm trying to be quiet because I want to just let the storm, that's the star, and I want it to shine, and I want the sounds and the visuals to come through without me getting in the way and without me commenting on it. Now, that is not criticism if other guys shoot storms. I mean, some of my favorite chasers, other guys are more the kind of hollering types, and I love their work too. I mean, we all have our different styles. Me, I like to kind of just get out of the way and let the storm tell the story.
Well, you're calm, but one of the things that ends up getting captured on tape is that wherever you are, in whatever language you're in, it's pretty interesting to watch you in action because you're so confident no matter where you are. But you end up, because it's on tape, in these sort of death-defying moments when the eye wall is really bearing down on wherever you are, you're actually helping the families find safe places to be. In the case of the Patricia, the only room in this hotel that ended up having a roof when it was over was the room you were in. And had these families stayed in these other rooms, they probably wouldn't have made it. And this is over and over again. But here we could go on forever about that. Each storm that you have been in has its own story. But the one that I remember the most is Dorian. Because as Dorian last year was bearing down on the Bahamas, this unbelievable eye wall, as I mentioned offline, it reminded me of Katrina when it was headed toward Louisiana and Mississippi. Just a scary, scary moment. But I was following you. And you were in Marsh Harbor and in the Abacos, and you tweeted something like this, said this. You said, "I feel like a rocket is about to take off." Then not long after that, you tweeted, "This is going to get ugly." And not long after that, we didn't hear from you again for a couple of days. And I have to tell you, man, I pretty much came to the conclusion there's no way you could have survived that storm. What we're going to do is we're going to come back after the break, and we're going to talk about that experience. And you finally found your way to Nassau. You did a tweet from there. But the world kind of thought you were dead. And I don't blame them for thinking that, and you probably don't blame them for thinking that either, based on the experience. So when we come back, we're going to hear Josh's Dorian story, and we'll hear more from the Hurricane Man after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast View on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, "The man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen." Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at SuperTalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk, Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the house, Mike Hurst.
When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out a third of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive. If a muckety muck wants you to hear what they gotta say, they come here first and sit down with Gallo and JT. This is ground zero for all Mississippi muckety mucks. Super Talk, Mississippi. Watch your favorite Super Talk shows in HD. Just go to supertalktv.com. Ever wonder what goes on in the studio during the shows? Now you can watch what happens in HD. Super Talk TV, streaming now on supertalktv.com. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Josh Morgan with us, Cyclone or the Hurricane Man, or as Cal Curley put it, a special kind of stupid. That's okay to say that in Mississippi, Josh.
That's cool. That's cool.
So
guilty as charged.
When we went to the break, I was talking about Hurricane Dorian and Marsh Harbor. Look, the hurricane hits. Here are some of the headlines. And if you go do a search on Josh Morgan, Marsh Harbor, or Dorian, whatever, you're going to see headlines literally from around the world, And the headlines say things like this. Josh Morgan has been reported missing along with countless others. Hurricane hunter Josh Morgan hasn't tweeted for 2 days in Bahamas. Fans fear the worst. 2 days later, you finally found your way to Nassau and tweeted this. Yep, I'm alive, made it to Nassau. By far the most intense cyclone I've ever witnessed in 28 years of chasing. Thought I was playing it safe by riding it out in a solid concrete school on a hill in Marsh Harbor. Thought wrong. You described it as 1,000 sledgehammers or 1 million sledgehammers. I'm not sure exactly. What was that like, Josh?
Dorian was sort of like this was the culmination of my entire life of hunting hurricanes. This was the holy grail. So to give folks an idea, so when it passed over Marsh Harbor, the estimated maximum sustained winds in it were 185 miles an hour. So that ties it for number one as the strongest known hurricane landfall anywhere in North America. It ties with the 1935 Labor Day hurricane in Florida. So this was like, as strong as it gets. And it made a perfect direct hit on this little town of 6,000 people, Marsh Harbor on Great Abaco Island in the Bahamas. And that's where I was. So it was during the day, so I could see it happening, and it was just it was really It was beyond anything else that I've experienced, just in terms of, I mean, I don't even know where to start, but just the force of the wind. And, you talked before the break about that final tweet that I said, like, where I felt like a rocket was going to take off. I remember the last, it was approaching, it was a category 4, and then it just bombed out and it became a 5, and then it became a strong 5. And the last report I had was 180 miles an hour. And I was like, okay, this is getting a little crazy. And I remember I saw a radar shot of it, a final radar shot before we lost the network. And it had that perfect eye wall, that it had that really intense inner ring. It's like a perfect circle. It looks like really geometric. And that's a sign of the stronger hurricane is, the more geometric it looks, the more it looks like it was sort of almost drawn by like a machine. And that little eye wall was coming toward us. And I remember like my stomach, I was like, man, this is going to get nasty. And it did.
Wow. So there was a point where this concrete facility, this cinder block room that you were in, you were telling people we're going to be okay, but you didn't think that really, did you?
No, I you talked before about how I'm in situations with other people. I have kind of an alpha personality, and I've been in a lot of hurricanes, and I kind of have a lot of knowledge about how to survive them. And I just automatically, when I'm around other people in a dangerous situation, I just kind of take a leadership role. It's just kind of what I do. And I remember, like, I felt like a responsibility to keep the other folks in the room calm. And I remember the woman I was standing next to, she's like, she's like, are we going to be okay? Like, is this room going to survive this? And actually, I was not sure at all, because the concrete was just trembling. And I mean, this is wind like you can't even describe. And I remember just saying, yep, we are going to be fine. And I was totally lying. I didn't know. I didn't know. I just felt like panic is contagious. And I felt like I needed to just say something to make people in the room feel good. Like that was my responsibility at that moment. That sounds like what my family was going through during Katrina. It was, you don't have a feeling that you're going to make it, but you are trying to keep calm so that people, don't completely freak out, because at least calm people, or at least somewhat calm people, are easier to direct if you needed to direct them to some kind of, attempted evacuation if that was necessary. Exactly. Like, panic is contagious, calm is contagious. And if you just stay cool, people around you will stay cool. I often say when the going gets tough, the tough get calm. I said that after Katrina a lot. So you're a Harvard graduate. You actually started a creative advertising agency, branding agency called Symblaze. You're still involved in that. You started that in 1999. But what brought you to hurricanes? Well, the hurricane thing started when I was very young. So I grew up on Long Island, which is it's an island off the coast of, next to New York City. That's where I grew up, and we get hurricanes up there, not like the kinds you get down here. There, the water up there is cold, so when hurricanes come up there, they tend to be unraveling. But that was the only kind of hurricane I knew growing up. But I just, from a very young age, I would get very excited, just as the wind would start to blow and the trees would start to wave. There's just had almost like a drug-like reaction to it, and I just always had it, and I don't know why. It just fascinated me, and and sort of as a teenager, I became this real hurricane nerd, and this is before the internet and everything, and before, it was when you were excited about a topic, you'd go to the library, there'd be like one book on it, this is back then, but I would just study them, and that's sort of where it started, and then my first chase was in the early 90s. I was actually, while I was in college, and I chased, it was Hurricane Bob going up the coast of the East Coast toward New England. And I chased it in a train because I was too young to rent a car or do anything like that. So this is before the internet, before mobile phones. I just had a duffel bag with some clothes and a paper map that I was tracking it on. I mean, it seems it seems like prehistoric now, but that was my first chase. And, back then, like I said, there wasn't internet and stuff like that. I didn't even know that people chased. I didn't even know that there was a word for this. I didn't have a camera with me. It was all about a hurricane's going to hit and I want to be in it. I just want to experience it. It was literally it was like chasing drugs. And it's kind of been like that my whole life a little bit, kind of like chasing that experience again and again. Wow. That's so, have you heard of, Levi Cowan, of course? Have you ever heard that name? Of course, yeah.
As you're telling the story, it reminds me of Levi's story. I don't know him, but I've followed him for a long time. He's just a young man who just got infatuated with tropical weather. And, he's just a genius when it comes to it. He's got his PhD now and doing well. It's going to be great to watch his career unfold. But you did that too. And what's interesting, you have a very successful company called Symblaze. And you're still involved in that company, but you're able to travel the world and still be involved, I guess, as executive vice president and co-founder of that company. You're kind of a lucky man to be able to do what you really want to do and love to do.
Well, I feel like the key to life is you design it around your needs, you know what I mean? And I realized, I think we all have to decide in life, like, what's important to us. For some it's money, for some it's love, for some it's family, who knows? For me, the most important thing has always been freedom. Just,
yeah.
I'm an adventurer. It's just like, it's the way my brain is wired, It's why I'm living from LA, just adventure, just new experiences. And I decided the way I could have that life that I want is start my own company, be my own boss, and just, so that if I want to get on a plane and fly to Taiwan in the middle of the night, because they're going to get a typhoon in 2 days, I could do that. And so I did, so basically I realized the key to that is self-employment. So I started a company, an advertising agency, and that's what I do. And now, in the era with the tools we have now, I could work remotely, and I have a great colleagues, a great business partner who kind of help plug the gaps in terms of like in-person meetings and stuff when I'm kind of on the prowl.
So you've been featured from the Weather Channel to Sky News in UK and every point in between, and you have UK TV, BBC international hit TV series, The Hurricane Man now, that literally can be seen globally. I mean, you're on Amazon Prime now. How does that feel to have reached that level of success?
Well, that was, that kind of brought it to almost like a surreal place. Hurricane Man's been a cool project, and it just kind of came out of the blue. A British TV producer just came to me and he said, "Hey, there should be a show about you." And he had this concept for it. And, we're just basically 3 crews follow me around the world as I hunt down hurricanes and typhoons. One crew follows me as I hunt down the eye to collect data. Another crew embeds with a local family to get the experience of just like normal people dealing with the event. And then a third crew embeds with like emergency management or emergency services, like first responders, stuff like that, to get the perspective of the folks who are like saving people's lives. So an episode kind of weaves these 3 plot lines together, and it happens in Mexico, the US, Philippines, Japan. It's like everywhere. So you also get to see how different parts of the world, how it's different, and hurricane and typhoon impacts in every part of the world. It is very different. And the show really shows that. So it's got a little bit of like a Travel Channel feel, or kind of like, Anthony Bourdain, the way he'd go around the world and have food in different places. And, the food is almost the excuse to just go to cool places. Hurricane Man's kind of like that a little bit. So it's a BBC show, a UK TV, BBC, and so it's actually a British show. I'm the star of the show, but I'm the only American in the show. The rest of the cast is, it's a bunch of British hurricane virgins who none of them had ever been in a hurricane until this show. And so that was something for these folks who, they don't really get, they don't get the kind of weather we do in the United States over there. So this was like, I had to break them in.
So let's do this. We're going to come back and talk about where Josh is now. He's in a special home in Bay St. Louis, live on Coast View. We're going to talk about that coming back. This is Josh Morgerman, Hurricane Man, the top hurricane chaser in the world. We'll be back after this break.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar, in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and
Wow.
all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Whether you're a rebel, a bulldog, a golden eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, The Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and The Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fm.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here, the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Josh Morganman, who is the Hurricane Man. He's our iCyclone. You can find him just about anywhere you want to find him. He's been in the eye wall of 49 hurricanes or typhoons around the world, has almost 100% success rate doing so. He has rented a house in Bay St. Louis. He calls the house he's in now the Hurricane House. Why did you rent that house, Josh?
Well, I chase hurricanes and typhoons all around the world. This year, not going to be all around the world because all the East Asian countries you can't get into them because of the pandemic. So I thought, all right, I'm basically I'm confined to the U.S. this year, so I want to live in the heart of the USA's hurricane country, and I want to be driving distance to any possible impact, whether it's southern Texas, South Florida, the Eastern Carolinas. And so Mississippi, this part of the Mississippi coast is basically equidistant to all those places. That aside, I've always been particularly fascinated by this part of the Mississippi coast. So when I was growing up, I was like this teenage hurricane nerd in New York. And, this is before the internet and stuff, but I'd read these, I'd read about Hurricane Camille. That was the big benchmark hurricane. This was before Andrew, before Katrina. Camille was the great American hurricane. And I'd read these stories about it. And the places that kept being mentioned were Pass Christian and Bay St. Louis. And so these places, so I was a kid in New York, and these dots on the map became they had almost like this mythical quality to me. Like these towns had gotten like a direct hit from like the greatest American hurricane. So I was always kind of obsessed. So it was really cool to finally come down here and see these places. And this was before this visit, I mean before. But then I thought it would be really cool to spend the summer or the hurricane season right there in Bay St. Louis, which is the ground zero, the point of maximum impact for two of the greatest hurricane impacts in American history, Camille, and then, of course, Katrina.
So you mentioned Anthony Bourdain earlier, and I said offline that Anthony Bourdain, who passed away in the last year or two with CNN, who had his travel and eating show, just a master. You have the same quality about you. Your willingness to go into a community, no matter where it is in the world, and immerse yourself in it, so that when you're speaking about it on the air, you have such awareness of it. And let me be the first among many, I'm sure, who've already done this, to welcome you to one of the most special places on earth, because in Bay St. Louis and Pass Christian, the areas that you mentioned, the Mississippi Gulf Coast for that matter, we learned that buildings don't make a community, the people do. We have resiliency in our DNA. We have a sense of community like you've never seen anywhere in the world, I bet. Do you sense that when you're walking around that place?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You know, this, I think specifically about Bay St. Louis and Pass Christian also, is these places have gotten clobbered just unimaginably twice in the last half century. You know, you think about it, 1969 and then in obviously 2005, which is the Katrina, and it's these places are still there chugging along, you know, and people stuck by this place. And I just, you know, it is really, it's heartening and it's really inspiring when you think about what this place is through, that it's come back like it has, you know, and yeah, resiliency definitely is a word that comes to mind.
So there's some good food there too, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'm from Southern California. You know, we eat differently there, and and it's like this is like your food desires unleashed here. You know, it's like it's hard to be. I know you are a health and fitness nut. It's hard to be a health and fitness nut and be at the heart of cuisine. Exactly. No, I'm serious. I'm very stereotypically Southern Californian. I am very much like a health and fitness guy. But when I have a rule, when I travel, I kind of eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
So I consider the next 4 months travel.
So when you think about Katrina, in a short time we've got left, you think about Katrina and Camille. They were very different storms, weren't they?
Yeah. I think they really illustrate two almost opposite kinds of hurricanes. So Camille was, as you know, I'm sure most of your listeners know, it was a small hurricane. It was the second strongest hurricane in American history, estimated sustained winds of 175 miles an hour when it came ashore, but it was pretty small. You know, the eye wall, the inner core was basically, you know, it hit basically Waveland, Clermont Harbor, Bay St. Louis, Pass Christian, you know, maybe into Long Beach, but that was it. That was the core of the hurricane. I mean, not that there weren't impacts outside of that. You were in Gulfport, you saw it was a monster even there, but the direct hit zone was quite small. Katrina was a much weaker storm, technically a Category 3, but it was huge. And in some ways it was a lot worse because the area of the coast that had a massive storm surge, as you experienced in Biloxi, I mean, massive storm surge extended all the way to the Florida Panhandle. So it wasn't so much about the winds with that one as the water. It was two very different kinds of events. Yeah, it is. It is amazing to think about those two storms, but in those two storms are a lot of lessons that people should pay attention to. We have less than a minute. I urge people to pay attention to this season and to their emergency officials. Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely critical, and especially now, you know, with the sort of extra complications this year of the pandemic, it's like it's going to be tricky navigating this season. Yeah, pay close attention. Hey, Josh, you are a gem of a man. I've enjoyed this conversation. I knew that I was going to. I really looked forward to it because I'm a weather nerd, and you know, I've spent a lot of time paying attention to the tropics, and you're a guy I enjoy following, and I'm going to continue to follow you. And I look forward to hopefully inspiring some people to pay close attention to all the safety procedures and to getting ready for hurricane and paying attention to emergency officials. Hopefully they'll do that and also be a little entertained by this conversation. So thank you for taking the time to spend with me this morning. Ricky, thanks for having me. It's been a real honor. Thank you. Okay, you bet, buddy.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.